Well, joining me now from Washington, D.C. is David Mack. He's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Near East Affairs and an ambassador to the UAE. Also from the U.S. Capitol is Ali Al Ahmed, the director of the Institute for Gulf Affairs. And in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, we have Saudi Affairs analyst Ahmed al Ibrahim. Gentlemen, I thank you all for joining us on the Newsmakers. Let me begin with you, Ahmed al Ibrahim. This visit by Mohammed bin Salman to the U.S., was it all about money?
Indeed, it's not about money. It's the first visit for the Crown Prince to the U.S. He's cementing relationship with the United States. And of course, he's looking at a co-investment from the Saudi part into the American market and from the American companies in Saudi Arabia to support the Vision 2030. So it's not only about money. The relation goes deeper for the past 80 years, and it's only getting better. I think we are at the highest point of good relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States. Mohammed bin Salman managed to change the face of Saudi Arabia. The more dynamic, the more aggressive, the more money that we spend in the economies, the better returns we're going to get into Saudi Arabia.
Okay, optimistic take. Ali Al Ahmed, do you agree with that?
I do not. You know, we have heard this broken record before. We have seen this old movie before. And this was what they said about King Abdullah and what they said about King Faisal. And the American intelligentsia and media played a crucial role in this disinformation. Since the 1957, when King Saud came to Washington, every Saudi king is called a reformer. And that's intentional because there is an interest in the West, especially in the United States, to keep these rulers who are serving not the national interests of their country, but the national interests of the United States, and it's even political interest. And I think Trump said it well when he said to Mohammed bin Salman, your country is wealthy and we would like to get some of that.
Right.
And this is the reality. Mohammed bin Salman is touring the United States and visited the UK in much more extensive fashion and longer, and spent more money here than he's done in his own country. So as if he is running for office in this country.
So let me ask, okay, David Mack, are we seeing the administration and the press going along with a myth that this is a reformer and things are changing? It's easy to call someone a reformer when it involves billions of dollars that you stand to make from them. Is that what we're seeing happening?
Well, there's a disconnect between the Trump administration at the top level and broader American society, including the American media. You're wrong if you think that the American media are going along with the image that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has tried to project of inevitable, fast-moving, effective reforms. That's not true. There's a lot of criticism in the U.S. media. There's a lot of criticism in the U.S. Congress. And behind the scenes, there are people in the Departments of Defense and elsewhere in the U.S. government who have serious doubts about courses that have been taken by Mohammed bin Salman, even though the United States continues to have a very strong and enduring interest in close relations with the government of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Mr. Mack, let me ask you about some of that criticism. So on the one hand, you have, for example, 60 Minutes. A lot of people criticize it for being too soft on Mohammed bin Salman, and others calling him a reformer. On the other hand, you have, for example, in leaked documents from the Mueller investigation obtained by the New York Times, they say George Nader used Elliot Brody to argue for the ousting of the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, on behalf of the Saudis and the Emiratis, because of their diplomatic spat with Qatar. We also have The Intercept reporting on the fact, they claim, that Mohammed bin Salman boasted that Jared Kushner was in his pocket. I just want you to sort of address those things that are bubbling. Does that sound normal to you?
I think that The Intercept report is of particular significance, since it is true that Jared Kushner has now lost his top secret security clearance. It is true that before he made his unannounced, at the time, secret trip to Riyadh and had long conversations with Mohammed bin Salman, that he had been reading the president's daily brief with that probably detailed considerable information about internal opponents in Saudi Arabia to Mohammed bin Salman, including people in the Saudi ruling family, and that it was a matter of a week or two after the return of Kushner to the United States that the leading members of the Saudi establishment were arrested, held at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, coerced most probably into signing over large parts of their money. Was this indeed money that they had obtained fraudulently? There's a real question about that. Certainly, probably true for some of it, but what's coming out now does indicate that there may have been very close relationships between President Trump, Jared Kushner, Mohammed bin Salman, and a few others, but that in fact we were not addressing a lot of the significant issues in U.S.-Saudi relations, which go way beyond selling modern arms to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Ahmed al Ibrahim, at the core of all of this, do the Saudis prefer Donald Trump to, for example, Barack Obama, because he's easy to manipulate and easy to influence?
Well, first of all, I just want to go back to your guest, Mohammed bin Salman. He's not drawing a picture. Mohammed bin Salman actually did so many economic reform and a social reform, and he has brought the country back to the future, I would say.
Okay.
He's going aggressive.
Sure, the execution rates have doubled. Execution rates have doubled since he came to power, right?
But I need to get the record
but fair enough,
because the record is wrong on what has been said.
But it's debatable. It's not clear-cut. Execution rates have doubled since he came to power. There's still people on death row for blogs that are allegedly atheist, for example. So you can't tell me that the society is suddenly a democracy like Switzerland
for
now.
Blogging in Saudi Arabia. There's nobody on the death row for blogging in Saudi Arabia. The record has to be accurate.
Why is Raif Badawi getting flogged?
Nobody.
Why is Raif Badawi getting lashed and flogged?
Raif Badawi, this is an Islamic country, okay? And he violated the law of the kingdom, and that's an internal issue.
Okay, so I'm interested.
Back to your question, Mohammed bin Salman is a reformer.
So we disagree on what Back to the Future means.
He's the president-elect of the United States, and Mohammed bin Salman, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, has met with the congressmen, all of them, from the top bottom in the Congress, and he's meeting right now with the DOD. So all those people are on board with Saudi Arabia. We have a deep relationship, 8 years of relationship. We're doing very well. If anybody did not see for the past year what MBS has been done to this country, then they have a problem with their eyesight. It's very clear. Everybody talks about it. The American people are not dumb. The United Kingdom people are not dumb, let alone the Theresa May.
But isn't it
and the
true
Queen
that they're not
Elizabeth.
stupid to miss out on the fact that they could make tens of billions of dollars by doing business with this administration? That's what I'm saying. They're not doing it out of principle, are they?
I don't mind spending 700 billions in countries that allied with me, but I'm going to get so much for my dollars back into my country when it comes to technology, cybersecurity, education, factory, all these kind of stuff. So let's not be tunnel vision and look at things and just make the news more exciting and happy and forget the deep fact. This is Saudi Arabia. It's a standalone country. It's a major power within the Middle East, and it matters on their hands. When you talk about the period of President Barack Obama, the relation between Saudi Arabia and America was very stumbling, but the close relationship managed to go through that. Now, if President Trump is going to continue and he's going to take a second term, good and well. If not, Saudi Arabia works within the American channel to get their policies done.
Let me rephrase that question to you.
Policy.
Okay, so Ahmed, let me rephrase that question to you. Does Saudi Arabia prefer Donald Trump to Barack Obama because Donald Trump listens to Saudi Arabia and its concerns about the region and does business more easily with Saudi Arabia than Barack Obama did?
Saudi Arabia preferred Donald Trump because Donald Trump understands the area very well, better than Barack Obama, who decided to stay over in America and make his own assumption and basically sign a stupid deal, which is the nuclear arm deal with Iran.
Okay, Iran. Interesting. Okay, Ali Al Ahmed. anybody who doesn't see the reforms that Mohammed bin Salman has brought in as crown prince is blind, according to Ahmed al Ibrahim. Ali, are you blind?
Well, I'm not blind. I think my memory is intact so far. We have to look at this from totality of Saudi history. Since King Saud time, where actually there was an attempt at reform and a building for the parliament was built. It's the pink dome building in Riyadh, because there was popular pressure and regional pressure. Then King Faisal came and took the country back, and it's still on that path, where you have a ruling family basically taking the country completely, controlling everything. Right now what we have one man, it's even much more concentrated, who is doing very bad things, throwing money away. He came here with like 1,000+ people, like maybe 700, 800 Mercedes, spending the country's money. In America, he's not spending the country's money in the country.
You say he's doing terrible things. What about women? Women can drive. He said in an interview that the black abaya won't be imposed on women throughout the kingdom and so forth. You can't say, on the one hand, you can't say that he's not a reformer and then just deny that these, however little, these reforms have occurred.
These are not reforms.
What are they?
These are not reforms, because this is realities of life when they set in. When you have mobile phone service provided in your country, these are not reforms, because everybody has them. That's the world now. You can't keep people, force people to do these things. You can't do it, because economically you lose. A man like Mohammed bin Salman, who's 33 years old, giving $45 billion to this Japanese mogul in 45 minutes, that tells you how crazy and irresponsible a person like this. 45 billion. When you want to buy a car, it takes you more than that to decide what your best option. To throw $45 billion of your national wealth without process, without oversight of anybody, that tells you this person is a megalomania who is thinking that he is the world, God's gift to the world, and that's why he's spending the country's money outside. Right now, Saudi Arabia has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world.
And that's an interesting point. I don't want to
wrong. Maybe MBS has a better IQ than you, by far.
Okay, hold on for a second.
Of course,
Ali,
he does.
Ali, I want to understand the American mindset here. Yes. I want to understand the American mindset as to why the administration might be backing Mohammed bin Salman so unequivocally. David Mack, help us understand. Clearly, the administration sits down, so it's not just the White House, not just the executive branch. You have the State Department and others. They look at this man, they see what he wants to do, they see his vision, they look at the national interest, whether it's with regards geopolitics and money and so on and so forth. What is the one thing about him that makes the administration say, yes, this is our guy and we're going to continue to support Saudi Arabia with him as the potential king in the future as well?
Well, to some degree, I think that both governments at the top and I would say also some of your questions tend to over-focus on personalizing this issue. The plain reality is that the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have very diverse, overlapping interests. We need to cooperate together for all kinds of reasons. It is true that Americans have been attracted very broadly by the vision that's been expounded by Mohammed bin Salman going back a year or so. On the other hand, if you can't translate that vision into concrete measures of governance that are effective, in the end, you're just setting yourself up for a very bad reaction. And we have seen that happen before in Saudi history. So I think it's very important that we approach the question of Mohammed bin Salman's leadership in a very clear-eyed and somewhat skeptical manner. And I don't think that that has been true of Jared Kushner and perhaps not true of the president. So we need to step back. We need to take a good, clear-eyed look at this. We need to get an ambassador out in Riyadh. We need to get a permanent assistant secretary for the Near East that has been confirmed by the Senate and is a good high-level diplomat. And we need to start dealing with Saudi Arabia in a more honest way and not simply leaving it to sound bites such as what took place yesterday at the White House when Trump said, well, we're selling lots and lots of arms. Our arms are terrific. It makes lots of jobs for Americans. And besides, the money that the Saudi government is spending is mere peanuts.
Right.
That was not a very helpful
and let
thing
me ask
for the
you,
president
let me
to
pick
say.
up on that a little bit with regards to the weapons. And sorry to interrupt you. You have the war in Yemen. A lot of those weapons are being used in the war in Yemen. At the same time, you have so many congressmen, and the Senate had a vote. 44 senators didn't want those weapon sales to continue. They lost out to 55. But you have congressmen across the political divide not wanting the U.S. to be complicit in this war anymore by selling weapons to the Saudis. This is a political reality on the ground in Washington at the moment. And while that's happening, Donald Trump chooses not to talk about Yemen at all with Mohammed bin Salman. Was that a mistake, in your opinion, Mr. Mack?
I have no way of knowing whether or not President Trump talked to Mohammed bin Salman about Yemen.
His press secretary said no.
We
so
have been engaged.
Yeah, I mean, I'd
we have
assume
been
not.
engaged with this. Okay, but we've been engaged with this on a regular basis at other levels, including the level of Secretary of Defense Mattis and our Commander-in-Chief for the Central Command. We do face some serious terrorist threats out there, and I think there is a general agreement in the U.S. security community that we need to deal more effectively with the problems in the Yemen, including getting some kind of negotiations for a long-term political settlement that would probably include some kind of peace agreement that would involve the Houthis and separate them off from the Iranians instead of playing into the hands of the Iranians. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia both want to confront Iran, but the question is how to do it effectively. It's not effective if Saudi Arabia is alienating other parts, other allies it needs in the region to do this, such as Turkey, such as Qatar.
Right.
So we need to get a much broader-based coalition that's confronting Iran.
So that's an interesting point.
Interesting some serious talks.
Yeah, Ahmed al Ibrahim, wouldn't it be reasonable for the Saudis to get more opinions on board with regards to the war in Yemen instead of going it alone?
Well, Saudi Arabia knows what they are doing in Yemen. And of course, I disagree with you. Actually, the talks they've talked about Yemen and Iran behind closed doors, Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Trump. And Yemen is a fact. Saudi Arabia does not like they continue with the war in Yemen. However, like where this channel is broadcasting from Turkey right now is in the north of Syria because there's a danger on the border. So imagine we have an Iranian militia sitting in Yemen on the border of Saudi Arabia, sending ballistic missiles to the Holy Lands of Saudi Arabia, and it's operated by Hezbollah. This is something Saudi Arabia has no tolerance, has zero tolerance when it comes to that. Yet they want to save the Yemeni people. They want to give the human rights for the Yemeni people, and that's what Mohammed bin Salman has expressed in his 60-minute interview that he doesn't like it, he wants to get away from it, but the international community, they should focus their energy, like you guys, what you need to do on the programs more often, to focus the energy on Iran, to pull out their influence from Yemen, and everything is going to be peaceful.
But
what
it
is
doesn't
in the
mean,
world
listen, just
Iran
because,
doing in Yemen?
Okay, that's the Saudi justification for the war. But as the war has ticked along,
it's
whatever
not a
the
Saudi justification, it's a logic, Oman.
Okay,
Oman, how many Saudi Arabia?
You're also telling me what the program needs to focus on.
Hold on. Saudi Arabia has. Iran has Houthis, has Hezbollah,
Certainly.
has 40 militia in Iraq, and has in Syria.
Thousands
this
have
is
been
common
killed.
sense. I don't need to
Thousands
massage anything from Saudi Arabia. The record talks.
Okay, so that's the Saudi perspective. However, thousands have been killed. Hundreds of thousands are suffering. People are starving to death. We've had cholera and so on and so forth, right? So the point then is, clearly this is not working because you're not winning the war, and all these people are suffering, and all these people are dying. And within the United States, your strong ally, almost half of Congress is saying we need to stop this now. We need to get out of this war. Should the Saudis be maybe listening to that half of Congress?
Even if we win the war in Yemen, it's not a win. War, by all means, is not a win. However, we're eliminating Al-Qaeda. We are eliminating Al-Houthis. We are trying to hit strategic points in Saudi Arabia. And we need the international community to work with us. And this is the meeting between MBS and Theresa May, and they agreed on a formula. So it's going to take time, but there's Iran. If you take Iran out of the equation, the whole region will be stable. It's a very simple formula.
Okay.
I don't know what's so complicated about that.
Okay, so Iran is the center of the problem, Ali Al Ahmed. Do you agree with your Saudi counterpart in Riyadh?
This is just an excuse. The Saudi monarchy has been always using external distractions away from its internal problems. The country is suffering greatly in terms of economics, in terms of infrastructure. You know, before you go build the city in the desert and bring robots, you have to have a sewage network in Riyadh and put street addresses. You know, and I can ask your guest in Riyadh, what is his home address? He doesn't have it. He doesn't know it. There is no postal.
I do have a home address, and I can tell you my home address. When the last time have you been, Ali, to Saudi Arabia? I invite you to come to Saudi Arabia if you can, Ali.
Don't cut me off.
Because you've been 30 years outside Saudi Arabia, so don't say any lies.
Polite.
I'm being polite.
Polite. See, the country doesn't have a functional postal service. There is no bus service in Riyadh or anywhere in the country. So if you ask an ordinary Saudi, they do not have a street address, okay? And that tells you if they cannot do this very small and basic thing, they cannot do the most complicated part of the economy. Mohammed bin Salman is not superhuman, you know? The idea that Saudis have that their kings are superhuman, they could know everything about everything. This reminds me when Crown Prince Hamdallah wanted to tug an iceberg from the Antarctic to change the weather in Saudi Arabia. This is so stupid, really. Reality is there is no way out of this but changing the political system in Saudi Arabia by bringing the people in.
Okay.
And the people, now the country is I can call it a kingdom of fear, because the level of fear is the highest ever in the country's history.
Okay.
And there are more political prisoners
Ali, I've got to wrap.
than...
Okay, Ali, I've got to wrap. Clearly, the two of you disagree. I've got to move on. And for the moment, I've got to thank all of you, David Mack, Ali Al Ahmed, and Ahmed al Ibrahim. Thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers.